Dr. Ilara Wynn had been warned about the Krethor. Everyone had warned her. The diplomatic corps had sent 3 separate briefings. Her supervisor had personally called her into his office to reconsider. Even the ship's captain had pulled her aside during the journey to the Outer Rim station, asking if she truly understood what she was walking into. They're apex predators, he'd said, his weathered face grave. 7 feet tall, claws that can rend steel, enhanced senses that can detect a heartbeat from 50 meters away. They've never allowed another species into their nursery halls. Never. Ilara had smiled politely and told him the same thing she'd told everyone else. That's precisely why I need to go. Now, standing in the entrance of the Krethor colony ship's central nursery, she wondered if everyone had been right to worry. The chamber stretched before her like a cathedral of shadows and amber light. Dozens of Krethor adults lined the walls, their obsidian scales gleaming, their predatory eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. Each stood over 7 feet tall, their muscled frames coiled with barely contained power. Commander Thalrock stood at the center, his presence dominating the space. His scales were darker than the others, marked with silver scars that told stories of countless battles. When he spoke, his voice rumbled like distant thunder. Dr. Wynn, you are the first human to stand in our nursery, the first soft-skinned species we have permitted here in 3,000 cycles. His amber eyes narrowed. Do you understand the honor? The risk? I understand both, Commander, Ilara replied, keeping her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. I've spent 15 years studying cross-species child development. I believe that understanding begins with presence, with showing up even when, especially when we're afraid. A low rumble passed through the assembled Krethor. It took Ilara a moment to realize they were laughing. Afraid? Thalrock's lips curled back, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. You should be terrified, human. One wrong move, one perceived threat to our young, and your diplomatic mission ends in blood. Then I suppose I'd better not make any wrong moves, Ilara said. She walked forward, her footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. The Krethor tensed as she passed, but none moved to stop her. She could feel their eyes tracking her every movement, hear the slight rustle of scales as they shifted positions. The younglings were kept in the center of the room, playing in a sunken area filled with soft materials and climbing structures. There were perhaps 20 of them, each about 3 feet tall, their scales still soft and mottled with juvenile patterns. They tumbled and wrestled with each other, their small claws clicking against stone. Ilara knelt at the edge of the play area, making herself smaller, less threatening. She pulled out her data pad and began making quiet observations, speaking into her recorder in soft tones. The cubs paid her no attention at first, too engrossed in their games. Then one of them broke away from the group. The cub was smaller than the others, with scales that shimmered between green and gold. It approached Ilara with cautious curiosity, its head tilted to one side. The entire room fell silent. Ilara could feel the weight of every adult's gaze boring into her back. Hello there, she whispered, not moving, barely breathing. The cub came closer, sniffing at her hand with its small snout. Then, to everyone's shock, it climbed into her lap. Ilara froze. She didn't dare move, didn't dare breathe. The cub circled once, twice, then settled down against her stomach, its small body warm and surprisingly heavy. Within moments, its breathing slowed and it began to doze. The silence in the room became absolute. Commander Thalrock took a step forward, his expression unreadable. Every other Krethor in the chamber had gone completely still, their bodies rigid with tension. For a long moment, no one moved, no one spoke. Then Thalrock's voice cut through the silence, filled with something that might have been awe. She has been claimed. The words hung in the air like a declaration. Ilara looked up, confused, her hand instinctively moving to steady the sleeping cub in her lap. I don't understand, she said quietly. Our young choose their protectors, Thalrock explained, his voice softer now, almost reverent. It is not something we teach them. It is instinct written into their genetic memory. They know in ways we cannot explain who will guard them, who will die for them if necessary. He paused, his eyes fixed on the sleeping cub. In 3,000 cycles, no young Krethor has ever chosen an alien. Until now. Ilara looked down at the small creature in her lap. It had curled its tail around her wrist, a gesture of complete trust. She could feel its heartbeat steady and strong against her palm. "What does this mean?" she asked. Thalrock knelt before her, bringing his massive frame down to her level. The gesture was shocking in its humility. "It means," he said slowly, "that this cub has recognized you as kin, as family, and among the Krethor, family bonds are sacred above all else." He reached out with one clawed hand and gently touched the cub's head. "This is my daughter, Dr. Wynne, and she has chosen you as her guardian." Tears pricked at Alara's eyes. Around the room, the other Krethor had begun to relax, some even approaching to see the sleeping cub more closely. What had been a chamber full of potential threats moments ago now felt like something else entirely. "I would be honored," Alara whispered, "to be chosen by her." Thalrock nodded, a gesture of profound respect. "Then welcome Dr. Alara Wynne to the Krethor clan. You are no longer simply a researcher or a diplomat." His amber eyes gleamed with warmth. "You are family, and we protect our family unto death itself." As the other cubs began to approach, curious about the strange, soft-skinned being that one of their own had claimed, Alara understood that something fundamental had shifted. This wasn't just about research anymore, or diplomacy, or understanding alien species. This was about connection, about trust that transcended biology and evolution, about a small creature who had looked at a human and seen not a threat but a protector. And in that moment, with a sleeping Krethor cub in her lap, and a room full of apex predators treating her as one of their own, Dr. Alara Wynne knew that humanity had just taken its first real step toward belonging among the stars.